Welcome to Life Stories, where heartfelt moments and unforgettable journeys come to life. Today, we bring you the incredible tale of the Harper family, a story of love, resilience, and a hidden legacy waiting to be discovered. When Sarah Harper uncovers a mysterious pendant left behind by her late mother, it leads her family on a life-changing adventure through history, community, and the bonds that hold us together. Don't miss this inspiring journey of courage and connection. Subscribe to Life Stories to join us as we begin today's heartwarming tale. Let's dive into the story. The storm was fierce that night. The kind that made the walls of houses groan and trees sway dangerously in the wind. Thunder rolled over Cedar Creek, and the rain pounded relentlessly against windows like a steady drumbeat. In his small but cozy house at the edge of town, Michael Carter sat alone in his workshop, the soft glow of a single lamp illuminating the task at hand. His rough, calloused hands moved methodically over the smooth wood of a rocking chair he was crafting, a project he'd been working on for weeks now. The room smelled of fresh pine, and a thin layer of sawdust covered his jeans and boots. It was a comforting routine for Michael, a man who had grown accustomed to solitude since his wife, Laura, passed away 5 years earlier. She had been his anchor, and her absence left a void that even the most intricate craftsmanship couldn't fill. A framed photograph of Laura, her gentle smile frozen in time, rested on the workbench. As lightning flashed, illuminating the room for a fleeting moment, Michael's eyes caught the photograph. His thumb absently brushed away the dust from the frame, and he murmured, "I miss you, Laura," his voice barely audible over the storm. A sudden, urgent knocking at the door startled him. The sound was insistent, rising above the wind and rain. Who could be out in weather like this? Michael set down his tools and hurried through the workshop, switching on lights as he went. When he reached the front door and opened it, the storm seemed to lunge at him, the wind nearly tearing the door from his grip. At first, he saw nothing but the dark silhouettes of trees against sheets of rain. Then, looking down, he saw it, a woven basket sitting on the porch, partially protected by the overhang. Inside were 2 tiny faces, red and scrunched from crying. Michael's breath caught in his chest. Twin baby girls, wrapped snugly in soft pink blankets, reached up with tiny hands. Their cries mingled with the howling wind, creating a sound that pierced through the chaos. "Dear Lord," he breathed, bending down to lift the basket carefully. Once inside, he set it on the living room table near the fireplace, where the warmth quickly began to calm the infants. He crouched beside the basket, his heart racing. Who could have left them here? And why? As he adjusted one of the blankets, something shiny caught his eye. Tucked beside one of the babies was a delicate silver necklace, its intricate pendant glinting in the firelight. There was no note, no explanation, only the fragile jewelry and the 2 precious lives before him. For a long moment, Michael sat in his armchair, staring at the babies as they began to settle into a peaceful sleep. Memories of Laura flooded his mind, the dreams they had shared of starting a family, dreams that had died with her. And now, here were 2 tiny souls, left on his doorstep as though fate had decided to intervene. Michael's first instinct was to call the authorities, but his hand paused over the phone, as one of the babies made a soft cooing sound. Something inside him shifted. He didn't know where they had come from or why they had been left. But one thing was clear, these little girls needed someone to care for them, someone to love them. He leaned back in his chair, letting out a long, shaky breath. His mind raced with questions. Who had left them here? Could their parents be in trouble? Or worse? As the fire crackled softly, Michael felt a tug in his chest. A deep, inexplicable connection to the babies. Perhaps this was what Laura would have wanted, for him to open his heart again, to give these girls the love they so desperately needed. He stayed awake most of the night, feeding the girls with bottles of warm milk he found in the basket and rocking them gently when they stirred. When morning came, the storm had passed, leaving the town of Cedar Creek glistening in the sunlight. But for Michael, the world had irrevocably changed. The twins Emma and Lila, he decided to call them, would remain with him. He wasn't sure how he would manage, or what the future held. But one thing he knew for certain, he couldn't turn them away. As he held them close that morning, their tiny hands clutching at his shirt, he made a silent promise. "Don't worry," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll take care of you. I'll give you the home you deserve." Little did Michael know, the decision he made that stormy night would set into motion a journey filled with love, heartbreak, and discoveries that would challenge everything he thought he knew about his family and himself. Years had passed since that stormy night, and the once quiet home of Michael Carter was now brimming with life. Emma and Lila had grown into spirited, bright-eyed 6-year-olds, each with a personality as unique as the other. Emma was adventurous and bold, always the first to climb a tree or explore a new trail, while Lila was thoughtful and observant, content to quietly sketch flowers in a notebook. Michael's days, once marked by the hum of his woodworking tools, were now filled with laughter, scraped knees, and bedtime stories. He had become a devoted father, pouring his heart into giving the girls the love they deserved. Though he didn't often dwell on that fateful night, the memory of the necklace tucked in the basket lingered at the edges of his mind, a quiet reminder of the mystery he had never solved. One afternoon, while tidying the attic in preparation for a summer yard sale, Michael stumbled upon an old leather-bound photo album that had belonged to his mother. It was dusty and worn, its pages thick with the weight of time. He smiled as he flipped through photographs of childhood birthdays and family gatherings, his mother always standing in the background with a stern yet loving expression. Then, as he turned another page, his breath caught. There was a picture of his younger sister, Sarah, from her 16th birthday. Around her neck hung a necklace, the same necklace he had found with Emma and Lila. The pendant was unmistakable, its delicate swirls and intricate pattern etched into his memory. He sank onto an old trunk, the photo trembling in his hands. Memories of Sarah flooded back, her laughter, her fiery spirit, and the way she had suddenly left Cedar Creek years ago. They had fought bitterly the night she disappeared, the argument fueled by grief over their mother's death. "You're being selfish," Michael had yelled. "You can't just run away from your responsibilities." "I'm not running," Sarah had shot back, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'm trying to breathe. Michael, I can't stay here and suffocate." And then she was gone, leaving only a trail of unanswered questions and a deep ache in his heart. The sight of the necklace stirred something in Michael, a gut feeling he couldn't ignore. Could Sarah somehow be connected to Emma and Lila? Had she left them on his doorstep? And if so, why? Michael's mind raced as he rummaged through the attic, searching for anything that might provide answers. Beneath a stack of blankets, he found a small wooden box. Inside was another photograph, this one of Sarah holding 2 newborn babies, her face a mixture of exhaustion and tenderness. His heart pounded as he turned the photo over. Scrawled in Sarah's neat handwriting were the words, "I couldn't do it alone. Keep them safe. I'll come back when I'm ready." Michael sat there in stunned silence, his emotions tangled in a knot of confusion, anger, and heartache. Sarah had trusted him with her daughters, but she hadn't trusted him enough to stay, to ask for his help. That evening, Michael sat by the fire, watching Emma and Lila as they played with blocks on the rug. They were happy, secure, and full of life, blissfully unaware of the questions swirling in his mind. As he tucked them into bed later, Emma asked, "Daddy, can we go to the park tomorrow?" "Of course," Michael replied, smoothing her hair. "Can we bring the necklace?" Lila added softly. She had a quiet fascination with the delicate piece of jewelry, often admiring it as though it held some magical significance. Michael hesitated, his hand lingering on the doorknob. "We'll see, sweetheart," he said, his voice tight. That night, As the house grew quiet, Michael sat alone at the kitchen table with the necklace in one hand and the photograph in the other. The twins' peaceful faces were etched into his memory, and now he couldn't help but see traces of Sarah in them, the curve of Emma's smile, the thoughtful way Lila furrowed her brow. It was time to find answers. Sarah had left him with a mystery, but she had also left him with two incredible gifts. And for them, Michael would uncover the truth, no matter what it took. Cedar Creek was a town where everyone knew each other, and secrets were as fleeting as the summer rain. Yet, Sarah Carter's abrupt departure years ago had left a void, and whispers of her disappearance had long since faded into distant memories. For Michael Carter, though, the past was no longer a closed book. He began his search for Sarah cautiously, driven by a mix of hope and trepidation. Calling in favors from old friends and sifting through public records, he pieced together fragments of her life. It wasn't until he stumbled upon a lead from an old acquaintance in Riverside, a city an hour away, that he felt a glimmer of hope. "She's working at the library there," the voice on the phone said. "Goes by the name Elizabeth Hart now." The name sounded foreign to Michael. But it didn't matter. He packed a bag, left the girls with a trusted neighbor, and drove to Riverside with the photograph of Sarah and the twins tucked securely in his pocket. The Riverside Public Library was a quiet, welcoming place filled with the faint smell of books and polished wood. As Michael stepped inside, his nerves tightened. He scanned the room and spotted her immediately. She was arranging books on a shelf, her hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Time had softened her features, but there was no mistaking Sarah, or Elizabeth, as she now called herself. "Sarah," he said softly, his voice trembling. She turned sharply, her eyes widening in disbelief. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the silence between them heavy with years of unspoken words. "Michael," she finally whispered, her voice cracking. "I need answers," he said, holding up the photograph. Her gaze dropped to the picture, and tears welled in her eyes. She nodded toward a quiet corner of the library. "Not here," she said. "Let's talk outside." They walked to a nearby park, the afternoon sun casting long shadows on the ground. Sarah seemed smaller than Michael remembered, as though the years had worn away at her once fiery confidence. "Why didn't you tell me?" Michael asked, his voice breaking. "Why didn't you come to me instead of leaving the girls on my doorstep?" Sarah looked down at her hands, her fingers trembling as they clutched the photograph. "I didn't know what else to do," she admitted. "After Mom died, I felt so lost. And then Ethan," her voice faltered. Michael's brow furrowed. "Ethan? He was their father," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "At first, he seemed perfect, charming, supportive. But as time went on, he became controlling, manipulative. When I found out I was pregnant, I knew I couldn't stay. I left him, hoping to start fresh. But I was scared and alone. I couldn't take care of the twins on my own." "Michael." Her tears fell freely now, and Michael felt his anger soften, replaced by a deep ache in his chest. "I trusted you more than anyone," she continued, her voice trembling. "But I didn't know how to face you. I thought I was doing what was best for them by leaving them with you." Michael took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling over him. "They're incredible girls, Sarah," he said. "Smart, kind, full of life. You'd be so proud of them." "I've watched them grow, in my own way," Sarah admitted. "I've come back to Cedar Creek a few times, story time at the library, school events. I've seen them from a distance. And I knew you were raising them with so much love. But I was afraid. Afraid they'd hate me. Afraid you would, too." Michael shook his head, his emotions threatening to spill over. "You made a mistake, Sarah. But you're their mother. And they deserve to know you." They sat together in silence, the late afternoon sun warming their faces. For the first time in years, Michael felt a glimmer of hope that the fractured pieces of their family could begin to mend. Come back, he said finally. Come home. They'll need time. But they'll love you. They're your daughters. Sarah nodded slowly, wiping her tears. I want to try, she said. I want to be part of their lives again. As they walked back to the library, Michael felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for Emma and Lila, it was worth every step. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe in the possibility of healing, of forgiveness, and of a family made whole again. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen windows of the Carter home, casting warm rays on the wooden table where Emma and Lila sat eagerly devouring their breakfast. Michael watched them, his heart heavy with the weight of what was to come. The photograph of Sarah holding the twins lay folded in his pocket, a quiet reminder of the conversation he would soon have with his daughters. After breakfast, Michael called Emma and Lila to the living room. They clambered onto the couch, their innocent faces glowing with curiosity. Girls, Michael began, his voice calm but tinged with emotion. I need to talk to you about something important. Emma tilted her head, her adventurous spirit shining through. Is it about the necklace? Daddy, she asked, her bright eyes wide with anticipation. Michael smiled faintly, nodding. It's part of it. But it's also about someone very special, someone who loves you very much. Lila clutched her sister's hand, sensing the seriousness in her father's tone. Who is it? She asked softly. Michael took a deep breath and reached for the photograph in his pocket. Unfolding it, he placed it on the coffee table in front of them. The twins leaned forward, studying the image intently. That's us, Emma exclaimed, pointing to the tiny faces in the picture. But who's holding us? That's your mother, Michael said gently, his voice steady despite the lump forming in his throat. Her name is Sarah, and she's my sister. She had to leave you with me when you were babies because she wasn't able to take care of you at the time. But she loves you deeply, and she's always been watching over you. The room fell silent as the girls processed this revelation. Emma's expression was one of wonder, while Lila's brows furrowed in thought. Finally, Emma broke the silence. Where is she now? She asked. Michael smiled faintly. She's nearby, and she wants to meet you if you're ready. Lila's eyes shimmered with uncertainty. What if she doesn't like us? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Michael leaned forward, wrapping his arms around both girls. Oh, sweetheart. She already loves you more than you can imagine. And I think you'll love her too. Underscore 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 underscore. Later that afternoon, Michael and the girls drove to the park in Cedar Creek where he had agreed to meet Sarah. The park was quiet, the golden hues of autumn leaves painting the scene with warmth and serenity. Emma and Lila held hands as they walked alongside their father, their small steps hesitant but hopeful. Sarah stood near an old oak tree, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. When she saw them approaching, she froze, her eyes welling with tears. Michael gave her a reassuring nod, then knelt beside the girls. Go ahead, he said softly. She's waiting for you. Emma and Lila exchanged a glance, their unspoken bond giving them courage. Slowly, they stepped forward, their tiny hands still intertwined. Sarah knelt as they approached, her voice trembling as she whispered, Hello, my beautiful girls. Emma stopped a few steps away, studying Sarah with the curiosity and boldness that defined her. Are you really our mommy? She asked, her tone equal parts wonder and caution. Yes, Sarah replied, her voice cracking with emotion. I'm your mommy, and I've missed you both so much. Lila stepped closer, her gaze fixed on the necklace around Sarah's neck. She reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing the pendant. It's just like ours, she said softly. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. That's because it's part of the same set. I wanted you to have something that would always connect us. Even when I couldn't be with you. In that moment, the distance of years seemed to dissolve. Emma and Lila stepped into Sarah's arms, their tentative embrace growing stronger as the warmth of her love enveloped them. Michael stood nearby, his heart swelling with a mixture of relief and hope. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the Carter family sat together beneath the oak tree, sharing stories and laughter. The path to healing had only just begun, but for the first time in years, it felt as though the fractures in their lives were starting to mend. And for Michael, the sight of his sister reunited with her daughters was proof that love and forgiveness could bridge even the deepest divides. The days following the reunion were a whirlwind of emotions for Sarah, Michael, and the twins. It was as if the threads of their lives, once tangled and frayed, were slowly being woven back together. Yet, the path forward was not without its challenges. Sarah spent her first full day with Emma and Lila at Michael's home, immersing herself in their world. The house was warm and welcoming, its walls adorned with photographs of the twins at every stage of their young lives. Sarah lingered over each picture, her heart aching with both pride and regret. You've done such an amazing job, Michael, she said softly, as they sat at the kitchen table late that evening. The girls were upstairs, giggling as they played with their dolls. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for them. Michael smiled, his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee. They're incredible kids, Sarah. But they deserve to know their mother, too. And you're here now, that's what matters. Sarah nodded, but the weight of her absence still pressed heavily on her heart. I'm scared, she admitted. What if I mess this up? What if they don't forgive me for leaving? Michael reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on hers. Kids are resilient, he said. They've already started to forgive you. Just keep showing up, Sarah. That's all they need. The next morning, Sarah and the twins ventured into town together. Cedar Creek, with its quaint streets and familiar faces, felt like a lifetime ago for Sarah. As they strolled through the market square, she couldn't help but notice the curious glances from the townsfolk. Is that Sarah Carter? One woman whispered to her companion. I thought she left for good. Sarah held her head high, focusing on Emma and Lila as they darted from stall to stall, marveling at the colorful wares. When they stopped at a booth selling handmade jewelry, Emma picked up a delicate bracelet, her eyes lighting up. This is so pretty. Mommy, she said, the word mommy rolling off her tongue with newfound ease. Sarah's heart swelled. Let's get it, she said, smiling. It'll be our little keepsake from today. Lila, ever the quieter of the two, tugged at Sarah's sleeve. Can we get something for Uncle Michael too? She asked. Sarah crouched down, meeting Lila's earnest gaze. That's a wonderful idea. Sweetheart, she said. Let's find something he'll love. They picked out a leather-bound notebook, knowing Michael often jotted down his thoughts and ideas. When they returned home, the girls ran inside excitedly, eager to show Michael their gifts. Uncle Michael. Look, Emma exclaimed, holding out the notebook. Michael's face softened as he took the gift. You didn't have to do this, he said, his voice thick with emotion. It was Lila's idea, Sarah said, smiling at her younger daughter. Lila beamed, her shyness momentarily replaced by pride. That evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Sarah and Michael sat on the porch, the cool night air wrapping around them. The distant sound of crickets filled the silence as Sarah gazed up at the stars. It feels strange, being back, she admitted. Like I'm both home and a stranger here. Michael nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. It'll take time, he said. For you. For the girls. For the town. But you're doing the right thing. Sarah. You're rebuilding. Tears pricked at her eyes as she whispered. I just hope it's enough. Michael turned to her, his expression firm. It will be. You've already shown them you care. The rest will follow. As the night deepened, Sarah found herself filled with a sense of cautious hope. The road ahead would be long. But for the first time in years, she felt as though she was walking it with purpose. And as she thought of Emma and Lila asleep in their beds, their small hands clutching the necklaces that connected them all, Sarah vowed to never let fear keep her from them again. The days in Cedar Creek were marked by moments of joy and discovery as Sarah adjusted to her new role in Emma and Lila's lives. Yet, the closer she grew to her daughters, the more she grappled with the ghosts of her past. Each time she saw their innocent smiles, she was reminded of the years she had missed. And a lingering question tugged at her heart: would she ever truly be forgiven? One evening, as the sun dipped behind the rolling hills, Sarah decided it was time to talk to Michael about the memories she had long buried. The girls were playing outside, their laughter echoing through the backyard as they chased fireflies. Michael was in the living room, organizing some old photographs into an album. "Michael," Sarah began, sitting across from him. Her voice was steady, but her hands fidgeted with the hem of her sweater. "Can we talk?" He glanced up, immediately sensing the seriousness in her tone. "Of course," he said, setting the album aside. Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze dropping to her lap. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened back then. About why I left." Michael leaned forward, his expression soft but attentive. "Take your time," he said gently. She hesitated, searching for the right words. "After Mom died, everything fell apart for me," she admitted. "I felt like I was drowning under the weight of expectations, hers, the town's, even my own. And when I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I didn't know how to be a mother. I didn't know how to be anything." Michael's face tightened with sympathy, but he didn't interrupt. "I thought leaving was the best thing I could do for Emma and Lila," Sarah continued, her voice cracking. "I thought if I stepped aside, they'd have a better life without me messing it up. But I see now how wrong I was. I hurt them. I hurt you. And I'll carry that regret for the rest of my life." Michael reached out, placing a reassuring hand over hers. "Sarah," he said softly, "you made mistakes. But you've taken responsibility for them. You're here now. And that means more than anything. The girls love you. And they're beginning to trust you. That's what matters." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she whispered, "Do you think they'll ever truly forgive me?" Michael's eyes were steady. "Kids are amazing that way. They're more forgiving than we give them credit for. They just need to see that you're here to stay. That you love them unconditionally. And I know you do." Before Sarah could respond, the sound of Emma's voice drifted through the open window. "Mommy, come look." Wiping her tears, Sarah stood and followed Michael outside. In the twilight, Emma and Lila were crouched by a cluster of glowing fireflies, their faces lit with delight. "They're so beautiful," Lila said, her soft voice carrying a note of wonder. Sarah knelt beside her daughters, her heart swelling with love. "They really are," she murmured, pulling them into a gentle hug. As the girls leaned into her embrace, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. Each moment like this was a step toward healing, a chance to build the future she had once been too afraid to believe in. Later that week, Michael suggested they take a family outing to a nearby lake. The crisp autumn air was invigorating as they loaded up the car with blankets, snacks, and a small canoe. Sarah couldn't help but smile as she watched Emma and Lila chatter excitedly about who would get to steer first. At the lake, the water mirrored the sky, its surface calm and inviting. Michael helped the girls into the canoe, while Sarah steadied it from the shore. Once they were all seated, they began to paddle, the gentle rhythm of the oars creating ripples in the water. As they glided across the lake, Sarah felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. The laughter of her daughters filled the air, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that they were building something unbreakable, a bond forged not just by blood, but by love and resilience. And as the sun set, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, Sarah whispered a silent promise to herself: she would never let fear keep her from her family again. The following morning, Cedar Creek awoke under a soft veil of mist, the town stirring gently to life as sunlight began to filter through the trees. In the Harper household, the breakfast table was alive with the chatter of Emma and Lila, their excitement brimming as they spoke of their plans for the day. "Mommy," Emma said, her fork mid-air, "did you know Uncle Michael can skip stones really far? He showed us last time we went to the lake." Lila nodded eagerly. "Maybe we can try again today?" Sarah smiled, savoring the warmth of the moment. "We'll see," she replied. "But first, I have something special I'd like to do with you both." Michael, seated across from her, raised an eyebrow in curiosity. "Special?" Sarah hesitated for a moment before answering. "I've been thinking a lot about Mom lately," she admitted. "And I realized that there are things about her life the girls don't know, things I'd like to share." Michael's expression softened. "She'd like that," he said quietly. After breakfast, Sarah led the twins up to the attic, a space she hadn't ventured into for years. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten memories, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. "Wow," Emma whispered, her wide eyes scanning the dusty treasures around them. "Are we allowed to touch anything?" Lila asked cautiously, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Sarah chuckled. "Yes. But gently," she said. "These are pieces of our family's history." As they began sifting through the old trunks and boxes, Sarah found herself lost in a flood of memories. There were photographs of her mother in her youth, beaming at the camera with a confidence that seemed to leap off the page. There were letters written in her mother's meticulous handwriting, filled with thoughts and dreams Sarah had never known. "This is Grandma Margaret," Sarah said, holding up a framed photograph for the girls to see. "She was brave, smart, and kind. She loved helping people, especially in this town." "She looks like you," Lila observed. Studying the picture closely, Sarah smiled, though her chest ached with bittersweet emotion. "She was my hero," she said softly, "and I think she would have been so proud of you too." Among the keepsakes, Sarah discovered a small wooden box with a delicate clasp. Inside was a necklace she hadn't seen in years, an intricate silver pendant that had once belonged to her mother. "I remember this," she murmured, her fingers tracing the pendant's swirls. "She always said it was special." "What's special about it?" Emma asked, her curiosity piqued. "I'm not sure," Sarah admitted. "But maybe it's time we found out." Later that day, Sarah and Michael took the girls to the Cedar Creek Historical Society, a small but well-curated museum that their mother had once supported. The building was a treasure trove of artifacts and exhibits, its walls echoing with the whispers of the past. Sarah approached the curator, Mrs. Walker, a kind woman with a deep love for the town's history. "This necklace belonged to my mother," Sarah explained, showing her the pendant. "She always said it was important. But I don't know why." Mrs. Walker's eyes widened as she examined the piece. "This design is rare," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "It's similar to artifacts we've seen from a cultural preservation effort during the war. Your mother may have been part of something significant." Michael stepped closer, his brow furrowed in thought. "You think Mom was involved in preserving historical treasures?" Mrs. Walker nodded. "It's possible. Many communities had networks to safeguard important artifacts during dangerous times. If she was part of that, this pendant might be a symbol of her work." The revelation left Sarah speechless. She had always admired her mother's strength, but this hinted at a depth of courage and dedication she had never fully understood. "We need to learn more," Sarah said, determination lighting her eyes. "If this was part of her legacy, we have to honor it." As they left the museum, Emma and Lila held onto their mother's hands, their small fingers intertwined with hers. "What happens now?" Emma asked. Sarah smiled down at her daughters. her heart swelling with pride. Now, she said, we uncover the truth and make sure it's never forgotten. That evening, as the family sat together in the glow of the living room fire, the necklace lay between them, a tangible link to the past. For Sarah, it was more than just a piece of jewelry, it was a reminder of the strength that ran through their family, and a promise that they would carry that legacy forward. Together. The following week brought a renewed sense of purpose to Sarah and Michael. The discovery of their mother's pendant and its connection to a preservation network during the war had lit a fire in their hearts. What else had their mother done in secret? And why had she never spoken of it? The entire family, including Emma and Lila, gathered in the cozy confines of the Cedar Creek Library. The library's rich oak shelves seemed to echo with wisdom from the past, and the family's research materials were scattered across the large reading table. I found something, Emma announced, her face glowing with excitement. She held up an old newspaper article she'd been scouring. It says here that during the war, Cedar Creek had a group of volunteers who protected historic artifacts from being destroyed or stolen. They called themselves the stewards of the past. Do you think Grandma was one of them? Lila asked, her voice soft but curious. It's starting to look that way, Sarah replied, her fingers brushing over the pendant that hung from her neck. Michael leaned forward, scanning the article Emma had uncovered. It says they hid items in secret locations throughout the area, often in places only the group members knew about, he read aloud. The idea sparked something in Sarah's mind. Do you think this pendant could be a key? She wondered. Maybe it's more than just a symbol. Michael nodded thoughtfully. If it is, we'll need to figure out how it works. Underscore 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 underscore. The next day, the family ventured to St. Andrew's Chapel, a long-abandoned church on the outskirts of Cedar Creek. Their mother had often mentioned the chapel as one of her favorite places, a sanctuary she visited when life felt overwhelming. Now, standing before its weathered stone facade, Sarah wondered if it held more significance than she'd ever realized. The heavy wooden doors creaked open under Michael's push, revealing a dim interior filled with dust motes that danced in the sunlight streaming through broken stained glass windows. The air was cool and carried the faint scent of aged wood. This place feels important, Lila whispered, her voice reverent. The family began their search, guided by the markings on the pendant. The intricate swirls matched a pattern carved into the base of the chapel's altar, a discovery that sent a thrill through all of them. Try pressing it, Michael suggested, his tone tinged with anticipation. Sarah hesitated for a moment before gently pressing the pendant into the carving. A faint click echoed in the quiet chapel, followed by a soft grinding sound as a hidden compartment in the altar slid open. Inside was a small, weathered chest. Sarah lifted it out carefully, her hands trembling with a mix of awe and nervousness. She set it on a nearby pew, and the family gathered around as she opened the lid. The contents took their breath away. There were delicate artifacts wrapped in protective cloth, handwritten letters, and a detailed map with locations marked in red. Michael picked up one of the letters, his eyes scanning the neat, familiar handwriting. It's from Mom, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah leaned in, reading over his shoulder. The letter described how Margaret Harper had worked with a network of people to protect cultural treasures during the war. She had hidden the artifacts in places she trusted, knowing they would one day be rediscovered. She wanted us to find this, Sarah murmured, her heart swelling with pride. What does the map mean? Emma asked, pointing to the red marks. Michael studied it closely. I think these are the locations where more artifacts might be hidden, he said. This could be bigger than we thought. The weight of their discovery settled over them. a mix of excitement and responsibility. "We have to honor her work," Sarah said firmly. "We can't let her efforts be forgotten." The family left the chapel with the chest in tow, their steps lighter despite the heavy burden of their mission. They were no longer just uncovering the past, they were becoming part of a legacy that stretched far beyond Cedar Creek. That evening, as they gathered around the dining table, the chest sat between them, a bridge between generations. Sarah looked at her daughters and then at her brother, her voice steady with determination. "Mom believed in protecting what mattered," she said. "And now, it's up to us to continue that work." Emma and Lila nodded solemnly, their young faces alight with a sense of purpose. Together, the Harpers prepared for the journey ahead, knowing that their path would not only honor their mother but also teach them the true meaning of courage, unity, and love. As the Harper family stood together in the newly established cultural center, the warm glow of the setting sun streaming through the windows, they felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The artifacts their mother had safeguarded now stood proudly on display, a testament to her courage and unwavering belief in preserving history. Emma and Lila skipped hand in hand, their laughter echoing through the halls, while Sarah and Michael shared a quiet moment of reflection. They had not only uncovered their mother's legacy but had also strengthened the bonds of family and community. This journey taught them that love, resilience, and empathy could bridge even the deepest divides. As the first visitors entered the center, Sarah whispered, "Mom would be proud." If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Life Stories to discover more heartfelt tales that inspire, connect, and celebrate life's most meaningful moments. Thank you for being a part of our journey.